Good evening, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order at 6:01 p.m. on November 19th, 2025. Would you care to lead us?
Sure.
Thank you.
All rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can we have the roll call?
Yes. Commissioner Fresco?
Here.
Commissioner Lambert?
Here.
Welcome back, by the way. Commissioner Landris?
Here.
Commissioner Reese?
Present.
Commissioner Wasserman absent. Vice Chair Chaco?
Present.
And Chair Hamilton absent.
Should we have the director's report?
Yes, so your next regular meeting will be on December 17th. There are no items on the December 3rd meeting, so I believe that's canceled. So December 17th, you will be reviewing two recommendations to the City Council. One is a package of code amendments and cleanups related to economic opportunity and growth. And the second set of code amendments is state and local implementation of the SB 9 revisions. January 7th at this moment has no items as well, so if there are not, you might expect that meeting will also not occur. For the Architecture Review Board, recent actions, this past Monday, there was a housing project at 1320 Pico Boulevard. That was continued, and they also conducted their annual review, as the commission will do tonight. At their next meeting will be either December 1st or December 15th. I think we're still probably sorting out applicant availability and things like that. And it looks like there's two housing projects at 1527 19th Street, which is in addition to a duplex, and 817 16th Street that is an 8-unit condo. And then there is a storage facility at 1752 Cloverfield. The Landmarks Commission will be holding their meeting on December the 8th, and they will also be conducting their annual boards and commissions review at that meeting. City Council met last night, and an item of note, there was an appeal of a structure of merit designation at 1125 18th Street. The City Council voted to deny the appeal and designate 1125 18th Street, so we have a new structure of merit in the city. And there were otherwise a number of largely closed session items. They also adopted the local hazard mitigation plan, which the Planning Commission heard, I think it was probably 2 meetings ago. December 9th will be installation of new mayor, Carolyn Terosis. And then at that meeting, we will also be bringing forward the self-certification, the first phase of that self-certification program for non-structural commercial TIs. And then we will end the year with council on December 16th. At that meeting is due to be the ordinance for the digital displays, along with the 4 development agreements. That will also be the return of the AHPP pilot program, which was following up on council's direction from their September, I think it was their 30th meeting, and then there'll be a final map on consent at that meeting as well. And then just news from community development. Pleased to share that I've appointed Roxanne Tanamori as Acting Assistant Director of Community Development. She will be providing both strategic and operational support to me and oversight of the department. So certainly well-deserved in that acting capacity. We have many, many moves happening within community development, actually, even at within the division. So all of it really, as part of the realignment plan, we have major priorities, not the least of which is, improvements coming to our entire development services process. And then finally, as you may have heard, City Hall is due to close, so physically close. So there's a 2-week winter closure that is scheduled the week of December 22nd, and then that last week of December, gosh, what is it? I'm looking at my calendar here. December 22nd through like January 2nd. So the City Hall campus will be closed during those 2 weeks. However, and we will have communications. We will have staff that are available remote to still do plan check, permit issuance, answer inquiries. Inspection staff will still be on site, code enforcement and the like. So there'll be information forthcoming, organization-wide on services, that will be shifted or, not available, but the City Hall campus, the doors will be closed, even though staff will be available during that time. So that's it.
Here, I have questions. Just out of curiosity, a morbid curiosity, is the 8-unit condo project at 817 16th Street asking for a waiver of AHPP?
No, I believe it's not, because I believe it's using a density bonus, so it will have to provide an affordable on-site
Oh,
unit.
okay, so that's kind of different, huh? The other question I have is the AHPP revisions, that's the off-site allowance for inclusionary?
that's right.
Okay, got it, thank you.
Yeah. Oh, I think one more item I wanted to add is just for your, if you're following sort of the single stair discussion, alternative means and methods. So that information bulletin was posted as of yesterday on the Building and Safety website.
Sorry, just to clarify, we've approved it, but we can't use it, right?
No, we can. So it's
Can?
it's an alternative means and methods process, meaning that it's just basically it's an administrative process reviewed by the building official and fire marshal for buildings that are under 4 stories. For buildings over 4 stories, they can still submit through that process, but then it goes through a peer review panel.
So why is Culver City getting all the love if we did it too?
They took a different pathway. I mean, if Michelle
We should
wants
get,
to.
I mean, we should, it's a significant, I know it's controversial, but it's a significant advance, and we should get some credit for making it a possibility in Santa Monica.
Sure. So as our director noted, they sort of took a different approach. We did the alternative means and methods. It was not an official code amendment. Culver City took the route of a code amendment, and that's why they're getting a different sort of press, I believe. But also happy to talk offline about the specifics that were involved in that.
Got it. No, I just want us to get credit where credit is due, because this has been a long conversation. I mean, we finally raised, or didn't we redefine skyscraper as 75 feet? I mean, come on, it's 2025, we're making progress.
Any other questions?
Oh, do you have any more questions for Jane?
I think so.
We also wanted, part of the director's report, welcome Gail Gordon, the Housing Commission Chair, as she wanted to introduce herself and to help better facilitate a connection between the Housing Commission and the Planning Commission. So we invite Gail Gordon up to the podium to speak with you all.
As I switch out my glasses. I'm Gail Gordon, pleased to meet you. I've been chair for about a year. I'm finally learning what I'm doing. It's unbelievable how much stuff you have to learn. Just very quickly about me, I was born in the Santa Monica Hospital. My grandfather had an office on Rose Avenue in the 1930s. My dad went to SMCC, as Jerry and I remember it. My son grew up through the school system here. So I've lived here since '84. And when I retired from teaching at Santa Monica College, I decided I should do something with my free time. So here I am. Anyway, I wanted to talk just a little bit about what I believe we have in common as far as our goals are in regard to the city, how we're hoping to, let me take my jacket off, sorry. To move forward in regard to housing. Housing Commission, one of our biggest focuses and issues has to do with low income, Section 8, people who have been or could potentially be homeless. Those are basically our clientele. We also are concerned about some of the off-site housing projects that could potentially turn into all low income, creating sort of a tenement type feel to the housing areas. I know they're supposed to be within a certain distance of the main building, and when they're built, we don't know exactly where they're going to be and what the clientele will be or the tenants would be. Also, I know that originally in the city code of Santa Monica, we were allowed up to 30% for low income into the buildings. That's never realized. That's never been realized. With all the buildings that have been going up, there are maybe 10%, approximately 10%, that are being assigned to low-income family, not even families, because they're mostly singles and one-bedrooms, low-income people. The community that we serve have children, have parents, have caretakers. We all have a lot of disabled and seniors who are also a little over 20% of the population. So we just want to be certain that that part of the population is recognized and addressed. We're trying to adjust the below market housing list in regard to prioritization on the list. We haven't given our recommendations, and probably at this point in time, it won't move on until next year. But initially when it was created, it was for hotel workers that lived in Santa Monica. We wanted to be certain that within the hotel, the people who work in Santa Monica, that caretakers of seniors and people who work in Santa Monica, I guess the approved hours are 25 hours, are also on the list, but we also feel that people who are disabled, seniors, especially seniors who are disabled or ill, should be toward the top of the list. Also people who have been recently, which is also in the beginning of the list, people who have recently been thrown out of their apartment for non-payment or whatever, and they're ready to be re-received into apartments so that they can get approved housing. I read and I don't know exactly what's going to happen with this, in the city manager's new plan, that San Michelle is going to be dismantled. I don't know where these people are going to go. I don't know where they're going to go. I don't know how we're going to deal with the people that we have in the city that are homeless, who are transitioning into housing, and just making sure that housing will be accessible for people that have been in Santa Monica for many, many years, fell on hard times, who are mentally or physically disabled. And so those are our concerns. Let me just read a few more things. That's kind of the basis of what we have, and just making sure that our neighborhoods maintain family neighborhoods, as this has been the structure of Santa Monica, that with all the building that's occurring, that is taken into consideration, that there are 2 and 3 bedroom unit that are being built into the new buildings. Initially, it was a lot of single units and a lot of 1 bedrooms, and we voiced our concern to City Council, and that we're able to maintain the feel of a family and a family community as we move on into the future and whatever that tends to look like. We just want to be certain that our communities aren't broken up so much so that they're unrecognizable. So I think my primary goal was just to reach out. I met with disabled and commission last week. I feel like since pandemic, I feel like we've all sort of moved out into the Netherlands, and I'm hoping that we can sort of re-bridge our gaps since we all have the same common goal. We want people to be in better straits. We want to help them along that way. And I just felt that if I, met you guys and we could sort of communicate and see what's going on with you, see what's going on with us, and hopefully that will help everyone's needs going forward. That's kind of it. I didn't have a lot planned. I just really wanted to introduce myself. And I appreciate your time. Any questions, knock yourself out.
Thank you for coming out.
Of course.
I have a couple questions. First of all, has anyone ever told you you bear a striking resemblance to Joan Didion?
Oh my gosh, no. Thank you for that.
Yeah, you do. And in terms of bedroom mix, we totally sympathize with you. And the code actually has a bedroom mix prescribed in it.
Yes.
However, state law that allows density bonuses, which is most of what we're seeing being built,
Yes.
lets a developer waive that requirement. So that's why you're seeing smaller units. And the other point I wanted to make, have you and other commissioners actually toured affordable housing projects in Santa Monica?
Yes, I have. I don't know if
They're
my,
about as far from a tenement as I can imagine. In fact, they're often a lot better designed than.
we were
market rate.
speaking specifically of the new potential off-site units that have not been built yet.
But those will be like the ones we're seeing here. It's the same developers, basically.
They have a tendency to be cheaper with less fabrication. They use cheaper materials. They may tend, there was one thing that I forgot. Thank you for reminding me. They may tend to be, here's a for instance, 17th in Colorado, right next to a cement mixing plant.
Yeah.
It's a carcinogen, just waiting to happen. So we just want to make sure that everyone is healthy. And I could be way off base because they haven't been built yet per the discussion of it just a few months ago. I think in June was the first time we became aware.
But let me stop you
Please.
there. My understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, that the off-sites have to be built by nonprofits. Isn't that correct?
Yes, if a market rate developer wants to offsite their affordable units, they have to partner with a nonprofit in order to be eligible for the offsite option.
And those are the nonprofits who've built the really beautiful affordable housing projects in Santa Monica, so.
Well, I absolutely hope that you're correct, but what I've seen in other cities, and I could be way off base here in Santa Monica, is that that the housing that's built off-site tends to be more low income. And if I'm wrong, that's great.
Well, it is low income.
But I mean because our hope was that everybody could mix, right? That low-income family could live among higher-income family. Their children would be raised
Right.
with other people's children, so that there's
No, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
And we have a philosophical difference then, because I believe that you get a lot more social services, community space, child space, et cetera, in a 100% project than you would in a market rate project. They don't provide that stuff.
Okay, thank you.
So, thank you. Just a couple of points. One is historically, I want to say we did a joint, I believe we did a joint meeting once with the housing,
Long time ago.
with the Housing Commission a long time ago around homelessness. And that was pretty productive because it was an effective study session that brought the community, got engaged the community where we were looking at common questions. So I want to put into your quiver, the potential possibility of that kind of collaboration if we can identify.
That would
sort
be
of a
awesome.
That's,
Yeah.
when chair and vice chair with chair and vice chair to figure it out. The other is, to Commissioner Lambert's point, I think some of what I've heard you describing reflect, and you said at the beginning, I mean, it's like drinking from a fire hose, right? When you first get involved in this work. There's a whole history here. There's a history of inclusionary housing and offsite housing that goes back to a number of different projects with the kinds of considerations back and forth that Commissioner Lambert raised, and I would sort of commend them to you. There was a long and drawn-out discussion over, I think, 500 Broadway, which led to the production of the Arroyo by Community Corporate. And it's a beautiful building. What I would suggest to you is that the difference between typically the difference between an affordable housing project and a market rate housing project, and I've toured both, is the brand name of the dishwasher. Right? That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about the structural integrity or the design quality of the building. We're talking about whether the kitchen countertop is fancy, right, or is it serviceable? But they don't want to buy something cheap either because they don't want to have to replace it after every tenant.
No, I understand
Right.
that.
So it doesn't. I think it helps us to have a holistic conversation about some of these issues. And to your point about the 30%, right? We're required under the charter to aim for that.
Yeah.
But the way our rules work, as Commissioner Lambert said, means you get a lot less under real conditions, and those are the struggles that we all navigate.
Is there other beach cities, Manhattan, Huntington, who have done higher percentages?
Huntington Beach?
No, they can't. They can't under state law. So they also are. Those are municipalities. At least one of them that have been sued for
You mean Huntington?
failing to meet their housing mandates, and that's something we've worked really hard to do. So there are always trade-offs, and I think the conflicts that we've had here in the last decade are worth studying because you can see, and you'll land somewhere, right? You'll form your own opinion, but I think we've had a lot of these debates, and we're trying to find pathways through. Is tonight's agenda kind of is evidence of.
I think one other thing that I forgot to mention, which is also a concern to Housing Commission, are the units that are going to be built near the freeways with the off-gassing and the fumes and the concern for the proximity and how that will be addressed in the builds.
And we've had those conversations here when we did the housing element. We were actually looking at whether those kinds of properties ought to be on the suitable sites inventory. It is worth noting that I believe it's 500 feet. Well, no, I was going to say there are a number of vehicles that simply cannot go west of Cloverfield. So when you're talking about environmental impacts, they are
Yes.
very different east of Cloverfield from west because of the constraints of the McClure Tunnel and what the environmental damage looks like. But we have talked about the 500 feet. We have encouraged environmental studies. We have standards for how those things can be glazed. Your point about 17th and Colorado
Yes.
that raises a question from me for staff, which is how much of Metro's housing plans are within our jurisdiction, and how much of them are totally outside of our influence?
It's not, it's Metro property.
Yeah.
So that's part of their 10,000 homes initiative. They have consulted with us in terms of integrating into the city system, and for comments and things like that. But we don't have direct control over the property. I think, if it comes into requirement, no, we would approve it ultimately, but in terms of the planning and the RFP process, we don't have oversight over that.
But in terms of, for example,
Environmental issues.
yeah, like an environmental issue relative to the cement plant, would that be a state?
There'll be state standards, county standards, our standards.
If I could just take,
Sorry.
I'm happy to answer the
Yeah.
question. I think we're probably getting a little bit far afield
We
from
are,
the
I know.
agendized item. And this is,
I live in the future, and that's a big issue.
absolutely. Yeah.
It just never occurred to me that we had any power over it, because when you raised it as something you were working on, it just never
No,
occurred to me
something
that we had a
of our,
jurisdictional.
because it was brought to us, as it was probably brought to you. Well, Bergamot, 17th, and Parking Structure 1 were brought to us for our feedback. And that was our biggest issue, because obviously it's in a good area. It has proximity to Metro, but it sits on top, and we don't know how the groundwater is, what type of an issue would occur in regard to the cement, and when it rains, leaching into the groundwater. These are things we worry about at night.
Absolutely. I think we'd be happy to have a offline conversation. Planning staff has actually been to the Housing Commission before, probably with a prior, I think there's probably been turnover on the commission. We're always happy to come and speak with the commission on, issues
That would be
around housing
great.
policy. But again, I don't want to get too far afield on the agendized item tonight.
Of course, of course.
All I'm going to say is thank you very much for coming out. and
You're
thank you
very
for your
welcome.
service. And I do believe that conversations with commissioners on a lot of your issues, I think, as Commissioner Landers put, these are things that have been discussed for a long time. And the housing field, as you know, is very complicated. So there's a lot of different opinions. But I would urge you to kind of reach out to commissioners and have conversations with them about it.
And I guess that's another reason why I'm here, is to see what has been discussed that we don't know about.
Right.
A lot, right? A lot. So that would be very advantageous to us. So in regard to cheaper builds and that are managed by companies who are not doing a good job because their pipes break and they're in the city of Santa Monica and the tenants come to us because of, I think that was in the back of our minds in regard to offsite. But, hearing.
Have you been following the cost curve of affordable housing? It costs a fortune, a great deal more than market rate.
These are buildings that have been built prior to this, but just in the feedback of buildings that may not have been very well constructed. Plumbing should not, fall apart in a newer building, and tenants shouldn't have to live with mold. So, anyway, to be continued. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate the relationship that I hope we will continue in the future. Thank you.
Thank you again for speaking to us. Any other questions? No. Let's move on to item 5, which is Planning Commissioner's announcements. Commissioner Lambert, you have a motion?
Because of my knee condition and the fact that no one wants to see the scar, I'm asking that 11A be moved up so that I can actually sit through it, because I really can't sit for a long period of time.
Make a motion, I'll second it.
And I so move.
But to what? You want to
Move
move
it up above
9A?
9A.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Great.
We can do a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Passes, thank you.
I have an actual announcement.
All right. Commissioner Andrews?
I have an actual announcement, just something that I thought was really cool. Last week, I attended, wearing my planning commissioner hat, CoMotion LA, which is an annual conference on mobility and transportation in LA. And I saw a presentation. I'm going to get the name of the company wrong, and it doesn't matter because I don't want to shill for any company on the dais. I believe they were called Systematica, but what was really cool about them was that they were doing user-centered design data collection around wayfinding. And what they acknowledged was the idea that, and this is in honor of your having moved the agenda item, you'll get it, is that if you're trying to get from point A to point B and you are someone who has 2 working knees, the journey from point A to point B might be a lot shorter than for someone who has a stroller or someone who is in a wheelchair, or for someone who is a single woman walking alone at night. And they actually are doing mapping work that I thought was very Santa Monica-esque about understanding that distances between 2 points are not always the same.
Rate or rate?
I said rate?
Did you say rate study?
Rate. No, it's a data study.
Oh, okay.
It's a data study, and I thought that was very interesting data, and I wanted to share it in the spirit of how we think about mobility in the city, because we've had lots of conversations around individual projects or around our housing element or a circulation element about how people get around and why some people feel safer here and some people don't. And these folks, I'm sure they're one of many, have started to think about recognizing that, in fact, it is different, and you can map that. You can map those differences and then start to plan and say, we want to shorten the distance between A and B for school kids, right? And particularly if we're thinking about the design of the park or other large projects. So I just thought I'd share that. It was pretty cool. Yeah.
Thank
There
you,
were
Commissioner Andrews.
there were no flying taxis at this one, I don't think so.
Thank you, Commissioner Andrews. Any other announcements? Commissioner Fresco?
I am going to shill for somebody right now, myself. I just want the world to know that I am about to publish a book, self-publish, about the history of the Santa Monica Airport. It's called First Around the World, and this is what it's going to look like. I made the cover myself. It's a watercolor. And if anybody in the world is interested in knowing when it's actually going to be released and available, I have a little website, smhistorycompany.com, and you can fill out the form, and then I'll send you an email and let you know how to get it once I figure out how I'm going to get it to you. So that's it.
Thank you, and congratulations. Any other announcements? So before we get into the public input, just a quick announcement that if anybody wants to speak on an agenda item, you must submit a request form that looks something like this to the Commission Secretary, who's over there on my left. And all requests to address the Commission on public hearing items must be submitted before the Commission considers the item. We have 2 speakers already on items that are not on the agenda. And if you would come up to the podium, first will be Jerry Rubin, and second will be Sean Del Gaudio. Go ahead, Jerry.
Okay. Well, thank you very, very much. All the commissioners, city staff. I think it's great coming to these meetings personally. And I just wanted to come just to wish you all a happy Thanksgiving. That was the only reason I wanted to come here today. I was walking here and thinking, what a great city we have. What great city staff. I know most of you and the work you've done over the years, and I know the challenges we have. This is a great city. All the challenges will be met and overcome. I'll guarantee it and even get it notarized that will be true if we're all working together. I know next year is going to be an election year, and it seems strange that I wish elections weren't like, oh, negative publicity really works. You have to do it. Because it leaves wounds. Everybody here and everybody I know on the city council and in the neighborhood groups love Santa Monica and care about it. And I just wish that wouldn't happen when I see the people putting up banners in the past that said Santa Monica's an asylum or dangerous, you're going to get killed. I try to talk to them, but I can't reach them, but most everyone that I've talked to, residents and visitors alike, from around the country and around the world, when I'm at my sticker table, say they love Santa Monica. I see a promenade that's clean and people working on it, and I see it safe, and we have a great police department, a fire department, great schools, great commissions. I'd like to see us network more. I invite you to network with the Urban Forest Task Force, for instance. I mean, we're the only task force in the city still, but they're doing a great job. And they've been working with the city to help plant more trees downtown and clip the trees, and the plan to reinvigorate Santa Monica and revitalize it is a great thing. And all I want to say is how grateful I am personally to live here and really appreciate all the work that you're doing. That's it.
Thank you.
Happy birthday. December 11th. You're all invited.
Sean Delgaudio.
Thank you. Yeah, you pronunciated that pretty accurately. Sean Delgaudio, 911 Montana Avenue is the address that I reside at. There's a development that's been in the works now for approximately 8 years. It commenced in January. It was supposed to be completed in August. It's still going. It's a 16-unit building, horseshoe-shaped. I think it was built in 1940. It was a malt shop initially. They are expanding it, of which triggers the DOJ, or federally mandated ADA parking spot, of which the first architectural designs on the project show the spot. So Howard Lax, who did the Fidelity building and the Lobster, submitted plans which showed the correct iteration, if you will, of the designs. They ran into me, and I don't have enough time to tell you what happened there exactly, but they, if you will, found a loophole, technical infeasibility, which does not apply to residential buildings. Even if it did, it wouldn't be the extent of the damage to exempt them from making the spot. So there's a lot. The FOIA request I did a long time ago, I haven't done one in almost 3 years. I'm sure it would be a windfall, but the people there are distressed. Other people in his buildings are distressed. The Mills Act is a big part of this developer's modus operandi. So as far as I'm concerned, it's lipstick on a pig. So when he stepped up to the mic a long time ago, and tenants came to, because we were never actually addressed about the demolition and construction that was going to go on, we just got the card and everyone went down there, and we had a woman who's now 96 years old who lives there, has a pacemaker. She was screaming at, the commission and not knowing what was going on. Another lady was crying about the grass disappearing. I was baffled because 54 square feet of my kitchen and bathroom was about to disappear for this ADA mandated spot. Now, this thing is just convoluted. The city is disorganized, and the departments, whether it be building safety, there's a lot more going on here. I can just submit that we would appreciate the Planning Commission. Yeah, how much time do I got? To look at this, a forensic audit of sorts. The permits, everything to do with the whole project. So it's again, it's in. Yeah,
So
go
Delgado,
ahead.
if I might jump in.
Please.
This sounds like a complicated issue, and I'm not certain that it falls under the purview of the Planning Commission.
Right.
But I would suggest that you do get in touch with staff to make sure that your issue is understood. And if it's something that the Planning Commission can help with, they can advise you accordingly.
Right, I wasn't quite certain if you guys did have any power to. No, you don't. Right, Well, at least it's for the record, I guess. But building safety has a meeting as well, correct? Well, look, that's fine. I know when the meetings are, I don't particularly, but you guys can't do anything about what's going, I mean, the planning,
Yeah, I'm not sure that we can, and I don't know that we can determine whether that's possible right here. But you've spoken your piece, the staff here, and I would
appreciate that.
suggest
Yeah,
you
just-
speak with them and find out what the next step is.
gotcha, Ross, right, and Jing, you guys know a little bit about this. I'll just leave you with this, 911 Montana, it's all in the, it's a 911 at 911, if you will, so.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Our next item is item number 7, the consent calendar.
Chair, I'd like to pull the minutes of October 29th, 2025.
Do we have a second?
I don't need a second to pull it.
Okay,
I'm not moving it, I'm pulling it.
all right. All right, would you like to speak on it?
Do you want to vote on the others before we do, how do you want to do that? Do we?
Yeah, if you want to vote on the other minutes, then we can do the one that Commissioner Landris pulled.
All right,
Does anyone else have anyone else to pull, or?
I gave my notes to Ethan in advance, so I believe they were addressed.
So I believe we are approving August 8th, you're just pulling October 29th, right? So
Correct.
we are approving August 18th, July 7th, June 16th, June 3rd, and June 2nd of
Correct.
various, of all 2021.
all right.
Does it matter if I wasn't at October 18th?
No.
No. Okay,
Right.
so we can do a vote. Commissioner Fresco,
Yes.
Commissioner Lambert. Yes. Commissioner Landris.
Yes.
Commissioner Reese. And Vice Chair Chaco.
Yes,
Great. So on the October 29th minutes, I have one kind of technical issue where I'm going to be that guy, and another more substantive one that I wanted to bring up on the record. I'm going to be that guy on the, what are called ex partes. These are DAs, and I believe it's confusing to the public to call these ex partes when they were not legally required. So my suggestion, it's a double suggestion. If the commission wants to create a requirement that for DAs, we have ex parte disclosures, we could certainly add that to our rules. It would be legal, but they're not in our rules right now. So I would like to change those to voluntary disclosures or voluntary ex parte disclosures to make clear that they were not legally required, and avoid misunderstandings about anybody who didn't volunteer. And sort of throw into the mix, if the commission wants to come back and make those things required, we should just do that through a process. So my suggestion is that we just change the language from ex parte to voluntary ex parte disclosure or something like that. Is that okay
agreeable
with everybody?
with staff.
Okay. I'm sorry to be that guy, but I think it's important so that people understand. No, I'm not.
clarification.
Okay, this is the bigger one. When we talked with the applicants, I asked every applicant to commit on the record to proactively addressing prospective tenant health concerns, and each of them on the record said that they would. I could not find in the minutes those promises, and I think it's really important before this goes to council that any commitments such as those or any others that were made by applicants in our hearing show up in the minutes. So if that means we need to approve these December 17th, I'm cool with that, but I just feel that they made some commitments to us, and what I saw in the minutes were just kind of discussion notes rather than, in fact, my motion to approve was predicated on their commitments being part of the approval.
So I think there could be two options. We could either revise them and bring them back to you at the next hearing for you to see them and approve them at that point, or you can state into the record in this approval to add, the word voluntary to the ex parte and that promise that all the DAs said on the record. So I'll let you decide if you would like to see it or not.
others were here, so I don't want to be,
I'd be comfortable either way.
And I'm happy to make the motion, but again, you're the one who,
yeah, I mean,
you probably want to see the language.
no, I'm okay not seeing the language. This is a legal question. Are the minutes of record the audio recording or these?
I would say these are the minutes that staff has summarized for the meeting. However, the audio would still be part of the record as to what happened at the meeting. So if you'd like to see that reflected in the minutes, staff can certainly do that.
So the suggestion that I was going to make is to move something along the lines, and Jim, tell me if this is acceptable, that we would approve the minutes with the correction of ex partes to voluntary ex parte disclosures, with the understanding that staff will update the minutes to reflect commitments made by applicants for each development agreement pursuant to the audio recording, so that if somebody says, well, I don't, like if we come back and we don't have them, the minutes don't seem to comport with what was on the audio, that we're saying in advance, whatever's on the audio is what goes. Does that work?
From a legal perspective, that works.
Yep. Cool. Does that work for you?
My only question to you is, do you want to be more specific that it's any comments they made about that specific issue you brought up, or did you have other conditions?
Any commitments that they made. So that any commitments made by the applicants, including but not limited to resolving tenant health concerns related to the lights. I don't know that there were many.
Yeah, well, the note that I gave that I think there's a draft somewhere that Ethan corrected, which is similar in a way, so I think it's something to just sort of pair together, was that it showed a lot of our discussion, but it didn't clarify what the recommendations we actually were making to council were. And I wanted to make sure the minutes reflected what we wanted council to know after we blabbed about it for hours.
I mean, the issue is, isn't council dealing with this on the 16th of December?
Correct.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'd love to see these. In an ideal world, these would come back to us when we see each other on the 17th, but that will be after council. So my motion would incorporate Commissioner Fresco's, let me add to the motion, so it's the voluntary ex parte disclosures, updating these minutes to reflect commitments, all commitments made by applicants, including but not limited to addressing tenant health concerns, and incorporating the specific recommendations that were made with respect to the ordinance, and then each of the development agreements, such that the audio recording ultimately governs the record, and that if there's any doubt, that our vice chair, who was chairing the meeting, is perfectly capable to consult with staff to make sure it's copacetic. If you don't mind sharing them with peer before it goes to council, that would be really helpful. Yeah.
Peer is fine with that.
That's fine, thank you.
Great.
So moved?
So moved? Second?
So to, sorry, you seconded. So to approve the October 29th, 2025 minutes with the revisions that Commissioner Landris just spoke into the record. I'll have to do a roll call. Commissioner Fresco?
Yes.
Commissioner Lambert?
Yes.
Commissioner Landris?
Yes.
Commissioner Reese?
Yep.
Vice Chair Chaco?
Yes.
Thanks, guys.
We did work hard.
4 DAs in one night. You missed it.
All right. So shall we move on to item 11? I think that's our next item, right?
Gotta wait for a second.
It's not often we get a presentation from somebody sitting there who walks over to there.
I'm doing double duty tonight.
And I just want to remind Ross, this is the 1123 presentation and not the R1 anti-mansionization presentation. Okay, cool.
Correct. It's, anything with R1 seems to fall under my umbrella forever.
Ross one, let's
Yes,
just be
I'm
clear.
renaming the zone. That's also in this presentation. But that is correct. Tonight, I'm here to present an ordinance regarding two state laws, SB 684 and SB 1123, which are largely part of the same government code, one in the multifamily district and one in the single-family districts. So just as a little bit of a background, on September 19th, 2025, SB 1123 was signed by the governor, which became effective on July 1 of this year. On May 13th of this year, City Council directed to staff to return with an ordinance allowing ADUs in conjunction with projects utilizing SB 1123. So on June 10th of this year, we brought forth an emergency interim zoning ordinance implementing the allowance of ADUs in SB 1123 projects. And then at that hearing, council also provided additional direction to staff to return with amendments that modified specific requirements and development standards to ensure the feasibility of SB 1123 projects. So then on July 29th, we came with the extended emergency zoning ordinance with the amended interim zoning regulations that council specified, which I'll go over in the next slide. And then on August 12th, council adopted a resolution of intention directing the Planning Commission to initiate an amendment to the text of the zoning ordinance related to projects utilizing the two government codes that encompass SB 1123 and 684, and council's direction as stipulated in the IZO that they did on June 10th and June 29th. So what was in that IZO? So council's direction was to permit ADUs in all projects using the government codes. So that would be projects on parcels zoned for single unit residential, which is the SB 1123 component of it, and also on parcels that permit multiple unit dwellings. So that is the SB 684 component of the government code that came before 1123. They also, specifically only for SB 1123 projects, they also gave direction to eliminate the Affordable Housing Production Program, or the HPP, in lieu fee for projects with 5 or fewer units. And they modified the following development standards. They wanted to permit a maximum FAR of 1.5, a building height of 3 stories and 33 feet in height. They gave direction to reduce the front yard setback by 30%, but in no case can it be less than 10 feet. They wanted to eliminate upper story step backs. And finally, they wanted to eliminate the interior setback and step backs between ADUs on newly created parcels, except as required by the California Building Code. So that was what the emergency ordinance that adopted on the 29th, or extended on the 29th. So to give a little bit more background, just to catch everyone up to speed on what is SB 1123. So as I mentioned, it became effective on July 1 of 2025, and it largely built off of a prior state law, the SB 684 portion of it, which at that point required local agencies to ministerially approve the following on parcels that permit multiple unit dwellings. So they had to ministerially approve subdivisions resulting in 10 or fewer parcels for certain housing developments, and housing projects consisting of 10 or fewer units on parcels that were based off of that subdivision. And it requires a local jurisdiction to approve or deny a project within 60 days. So 1123 is what built off of 684, which really just took that government code and now applied it to single unit residential zones with a handful of tweaks, but largely the same concept was still there. But it added a couple extra requirements. And I just want to note that the overview I'm giving right now is based off of staff's current understanding of SB 1123. If any future guidance was ever provided by HCD or any other implementing body, we of course would change our implementation of SB 1123. But this is based off of our understanding, review of other peer cities like City of LA, that this appears to be the implementation as it is today. So a couple things that SB 1123 added that was specific to single unit zones is it requires the parcel to be vacant, which is defined as having no permanent structure unless the permanent structure is abandoned or uninhabitable at time of the application's submittal. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the parcel had to be vacant a year ago. You could become vacant tomorrow and therefore eligible for SB 1123. And as far as habitable and abandoned and uninhabitable, that would be determined by the building official. Additionally, it added that it could not be applied to any parcel greater than 1.5 acres. And it also has to be substantially surrounded by qualified urban uses, which is all of Santa Monica. It does also include displacement and tenant protections by not permitting projects that result in the demolition or alteration of the following. These are the kind of the same four protected unit definitions that we've had, in various state laws. So you cannot alter deed-restricted affordable housing, housing subject to rent control, housing that was occupied by a tenant within 5 years preceding the date of the application. So not necessarily the demo date. It's 5 years from when they file an application. We would look back 5 years to ensure there was no tenants in that structure. And finally, housing that has been removed from rent control under the Ellis Act in at least 15 years before the date of application. Additionally, there is a handful of locational restrictions. This is a smaller list than the list in the state law, but these are the ones that are most applicable to Santa Monica. It is not permitted on parcels that were created using SB 9. So you can't do an SB 9 lot split and then do an 1123 lot subdivision. It is not allowed on parcels in high or very high fire hazard severity zones. Unlike SB 9, where it's kind of a maybe if you're able to kind of provide certain building standards, SB 9 can be applied. This is a hard no for SB 1123 if you're in the fire zones. And we did locally earlier this year adopt updated fire maps as well, which is predominantly the northern portion of the city. And also parcels within a delineated earthquake fault zone are not eligible unless the development complies with applicable seismic protections. So largely this is required they need to provide a fault study at time of application so we can ensure that they are allowed to build there. Next, the newly created parcels after the subdivision have to be at least 1,200 square feet in size. This is a small tweak from the original state law where in multi-unit districts, the minimum size is only 600 square feet. So that's a small change compared, between the two zones. It does allow a local inclusionary ordinance to apply. And it also allows a jurisdiction to decide whether to permit ADUs. And as I said earlier, that was a council policy direction to allow ADUs. I do want to note that if a local agency does choose to permit ADUs or JDUs, the unit shall not count as residential units. So they don't count towards the 10 units that could be created as like a base project. It ultimately does allow for the ministerial subdivision of parcels to up to 10 newly created parcels, and it may therefore surpass local density limits. It defaults to the underlying zoning district to determine what can be built on each newly created parcel. So in the R1, except for ADUs, you would only get to build one single unit dwelling. And then this really applies to the most applicable subdivision types would be either fee simple ownership lots or common interest developments would ultimately kind of be like airspace subdivisions. We are allowed to impose objective standards on developments, but does not permit the following. We cannot impose a height limit that is less than the underlying zoning district. We cannot require a setback between units, so therefore they can kind of share on the parcel line. The side and rear setback from the original lot line cannot be greater than 4 feet. Parking within 1/2 mile walking distance of high quality transit, we cannot require parking in those instances. And we have to allow a development sizes that would provide for the following. If you are 3 to 7 units, we have to allow at least a 1.0 FAR. If you're 8 to 10 units, it's a 1.25. And cumulatively, the average total floor space of all the units together have to equal 1,750 square feet. So the proposed amendments. Ultimately, staff has taken council's policy direction through the emergency IZO, and in front of you is the proposed amendments that would codify that into the zoning ordinance. We are doing this through a new section, 9.31.335, small lot subdivisions, that, as I mentioned, implements council's direction of eliminating the Affordable Housing Production Program fee for 5 or fewer units, modifying development standards to allow a 1.5 FAR, so that would go above the state law that requires at maximum 1.25, so it's not more restrictive. A height of 3 stories and 33 feet, which would be more than the R1 district allows currently. Reducing the front yard setback by 30%, but no less than 10 feet, and eliminate upper story step backs, and finally allow ADUs in all projects that utilize these government codes. I do want to point out that the direction to eliminate the interior setbacks and setbacks for ADUs was not included because it's largely redundant, as there are already no setback requirements between units per the state law, and by eliminating upper story step backs already, you don't need to apply those to the ADUs, as ADUs for those development standards already comply with the underlying zoning district. So it was unneeded to state that in the amendments. Additionally, on top of council's direction, just to help with implementation and clarity purposes, we also included a handful of standards that the state law overrides of our development standards. For example, in the R1 district, we have a minimum parcel size of 5,000. State law allows 1,200. So we included a handful regarding parcel size, parcel dimensions, setbacks, average unit size, and required density, just to kind of complete the list of what the state law is allowing via council's direction and the state law provisions. And we did also include a section to acknowledge the ministerial review process of these subdivisions. This is a table that kind of, I hope, summarizes the differences. So the far left is the various development standards, not all of them. The next column is what the R1 zoning district requires. The middle column is what SB 1123 requires. And then you can see on the far right what the proposed modifications would be, kind of how they all kind of build off of each other. So you'll see, for example, like for the density, R1 allows 1 unit plus 4 ADUs. SB 1123 requires us to do up to 10, but with the proposed modification, we would do 10 units pursuant to state law and the ADUs. The FARs, between the original zoning district all the way up to 1.5 if the proposed amendments are adopted. Height, in the R1 zoning district, we have a 2-story and 28-foot height limit. SB 1123 just says we can't go lower. Council's direction, the proposed amendments include 3 stories and 33 feet in height. And largely it's just a kind of a compare and contrast between what state law requires and what council is proposing. This is also just to put some numbers to things, to provide a little analysis of, what does an FAR really mean? So I kind of chose 2 standard parcel sizes. 6,500 is fairly common in the Sunset Park district. 7,500 is a little bit more common in, let's say, the Noma side of the city. And to include kind of a larger parcel that we have other development standards that are based off of, I also include a 10,000 square foot parcel. So you'll see density pursuant to SB 1123 would allow on these parcel sizes either 5, 6, or 8 parcels. The next row is the FAR that is allowed under the current zoning ordinance, so the range. And the range is either a 2-story or a 1-story, so it kind of depends on what you're proposing. And then the next 3 columns are an FAR of 1.0, which is state law required, an FAR of 1.25, which is state law required, and it is not a mistake that I didn't fill in those 2 boxes, or 1.25 is you only get 1.25 if you're 8 to 10 units, and in 6,500 or 7,500 foot parcels, you can't get to 8, so that 1.25 would not be available. But if adopted, the council recommendation or proposed policy of 1.5 would apply to all SB 1123 projects. So I wanted to put some square footages to what FARs mean for various parcel sizes. I think people can wrap their head around that a little bit more. Additionally, just as some cleanups so we can implement this, we had to eliminate the prohibition of ADUs that is stated in our ADU ordinance for these government codes. So if we are allowing ADUs now, we needed to kind of get rid of that language. And also just to add a reference to the state law in our land division ordinance. As of 1 p.m., I think we had 34 public comments, 21 letters in support, 12 in opposition, and 1 I'm calling miscellaneous. It was more commenting on the intricacies of our zoning ordinance coupled with state law, how it's kind of hard to navigate it all. The letters in opposition, there's a couple points I wanted just to clarify. Some of the letters stated that they didn't want us to implement SB 1123. That is not what is before us. 1123 is state law. We are required to implement it. What really is before you is reviewing council's policy direction of the modified standards to help these projects be more feasible in their eyes. Also, there was a letter in reference to the local hazard plan and the safety element. You know, why are we allowing more density when we still have kind of safety factors to figure out? And I do want to just highlight, as I did earlier, that state law does already fully prohibit, you know, SB 1123 developments in any fire zone or high or very high fire zone. And if it's an earthquake fault zone, there is an earthquake fault study that has to be done. So we do feel that there is some already acknowledgement via the state law to kind of address some of those kind of local hazard and safety concerns. And so with that, the recommendation from staff is to, adopt the resolution that allows for ADUs in all projects, in both 684 and 1123, and modify the development standards as was provided by the city council. But by all means, this is your opportunity to weigh in and provide a different recommendation than the policy direction that council provided, that staff will, of course, bring forward to council for their consideration when we bring that in some, I believe, late January. And that concludes my presentation.
I'm going to alternate on the two sides, so let's
go first.
start with Commissioner Lambert and then we'll go to Commissioner.
I just have a procedural question. If tonight we decide other than to adopt an ordinance, or that, could the council then proceed on its own and do its IZO as a permanent ordinance?
Ultimately, you are doing a recommendation to the council on how you feel like they should proceed in adopting a local ordinance, modifying certain development standards. It is ultimately the council's decision to what they want to adopt or not. We are providing you the policy that they provided us through the emergency ordinance, and this is the opportunity for the public and the commission to weigh in on those standards that they at the moment have modified.
By the way, you have done an amazing job.
Thanks.
And I have driven him crazy the past couple of days with some questions, so hats off to you.
I enjoy it.
I guess I have a lot of discussion, but a few questions. If there were not an IZO, somebody could walk in tomorrow with an SB 1123 project and get it approved by the city.
100%. Yes, they would have to comply with just the state law
Nothing
stuff.
whatsoever to stop that from happening.
Absolutely not.
And I just have they're probably kind of out there questions, 'cause I'm not sure you would know what the answers are. How did they come up with the 1.5 FAR? I mean, there must be some rationale here for us to chew on.
Honestly, I cannot recall. I think they were largely trying to look at, what would maybe 3 stories need to provide any amount of flexibility that might be needed for these projects. I don't even know if 1.5 could ultimately be achieved on some of these parcels. I mean, 1.5 is not a guarantee. It's just a maximum. It's not a minimum.
Then why set it at 1.5? I guess my other question is, have they done a financial analysis to prove that AHPP fees don't work for 5 or less units?
Not a recent one. We did one a long time ago in the housing element that resulted in kind of essentially not with the current standards, but not an updated one.
But there's nothing now, nor is there any study that showed that you could do on-site for 6 or more, which is what would happen.
There's no recent study.
So as their IZO reads, projects with 6 to 10 units would have to do an on-site affordable product.
Correct. So it's only the elimination of the HPP requirement is only for a project, really an airspace subdivision project that is only doing 5 or fewer. The in lieu fee that is about like $50 times per floor area. So it can be, between $200,000 and $300,000, depending on how big the project was. We similarly did exempt SB 9 projects from the HPP. Those are smaller projects, obviously. But anything 6 or more would have to provide an affordable unit in an airspace.
And the council's secure that that's feasible, or they wouldn't have done it, right?
There is no economic study to say one way or the other
I'm
at the
being
moment.
facetious.
Yes.
Do ADUs count toward the units for AHPP?
They do not.
They do not. Do the square footage count as the average of less than 1750?
They do not. They're basically kind of invisible units.
They're just an income-producing unit on the property?
Correct.
Okay. And then finally, I've seen a project recently that doesn't abide by the step back requirements, but it has a lot of articulation. Is there any way to substitute articulation for, because step backs are really not that cool.
I mean,
yeah?
step backs are essentially forced modulation. I mean, that is the intent of them. Without them, I can't guarantee you that someone won't build a box.
I understand
Yeah,
that.
so,
But so we have no trade-off between articulation and step backs.
correct.
You couldn't
They're the
have-
same thing in our code. That's what they're meant to be doing.
But if, for example, somebody cut a balcony out of the middle of the side of the building, could that count toward the step back?
Yes, very
Oh,
much.
okay,
We encourage you to incorporate step backs into the design of the building.
That was my
Yes.
question. That's good to know. Okay. And then finally, if there were a 1123 project that came in with fee simple size lots, so that basically you had a house and a yard around it, and each one is an individual fee simple ownership, would that be a cumulative thing for AHPP?
We believe not.
I didn't think so. Yeah. Okay. All right. That's all. Thank you.
You done? Great. Commissioner Reese?
Couple of quick questions for you. I just want to go back to the step back conversation, and she said, you know, it had articulation, but it didn't meet the spirit of the step back. It seems like we have a process in the city that allows for that type of modification when there's architectural interest. Can that be applied in this situation?
That is a good question. So in the R1, you can go to the Architecture Review Board to modify a handful of standards. One of them is if you're not fully complying with upper story step backs. Given that these have to be ministerially approved and that is a discretionary action, I guess we could look at that as a voluntary process that they're choosing to go through. So I think we could provide that if they are choosing to do that.
Nobody's going to choose to go through a discretionary action in Santa Monica.
People will use the ARB for it happens a couple times a year for those
I
type
was
of
just curious, because I remember
modifications.
we had that commercial building where,
Yes.
and which I was at an event last week where they won awards for that building, by the way.
The one on Wilshire, I believe you're talking about, that was through a minor mod. Those only it's in the R1 only do we give discretion to ARB to waive some standards. In all other zones, they're through other modifications that either are minor mods that go through the zoning administrator or they come to the planning commission.
Okay, thank you, very clear. Are you seeing, is the city seeing action on the 11, on the initial state law, the 1123?
So we have one project that has been submitted, has not been approved yet. It is proposing 8 fee simple lots on a 13,000 plus square foot lot, original lot size. I think it's a little over 13. They're proposing 8 units, and they're not using anything in the emergency interim zoning ordinance. They're complying with state law. I believe, I've quickly looked through that. Let me just correct myself.
Leads me to the next question is, why do we need new standards? Because are we finding out that there's problematic from the state, or there's a lack of clarity that
The state has not weighed in on anything of our local standards that says we are not allowed to do them. This is
we got
very.
a lot of things going in Santa Monica. Why was this of?
This was, I think a long-standing kind of trend of council to provide, greater flexibility, to provide diverse housing opportunities in our R1 neighborhoods, starting in the housing element with SB 9, going above 4 units for 10,000 square foot parcels. I would imagine this is kind of just the natural trend, but it is, there was no project at the time that was submitted that necessitated these standards.
And I will tell you that I'm having trouble kind of envisioning what these look like in my head. And to bring examples to us when you're presenting code would be really helpful. Like, for example, I'm just thinking, okay, so I'm dividing a 13,000 square foot lot into 8 units, I think you said, 8
Yes.
parcels. Does everyone have its own garage, and does it have a common access point? Or
This one is providing, everyone's having I don't know if they all have their own garage, because state law actually doesn't say we can allow covered parking, but each of them are providing at least one parking space. And I think in a garage, but at least one parking space. The plans are posted online if anyone wants to look. They're public record, they're online, if anyone wants to look at them.
I mean, it may be helpful to think, because it was 684, 1123. I mean, I think the spirit of it was almost like these like small lot subdivisions, if you're familiar with what the city of Los Angeles did. And he's kind of, you know, I mean, you kind of see them peppered throughout Los Angeles. And, you know, in your case, you're thinking about kind of, if there's more than, typically you see like 2 of them, but, you know, probably in that kind of like walk-up skinny townhome style-ish. I mean, that's sort of generally, I think, in the
That's
one
what they look
application we
like.
have. I will note, we actually do have one other that's using 684.
684
that
on
is just
yeah.
a
It was approved.
subdivision. Yeah, so
It was
that
in-
one is another, we have a second.
Yeah, it was in the multifamily on Stewart. You can see the approval, and it was only doing 4 parcels.
Happened to be a narrow
Yes.
lot.
The interesting part, 684 could have done a lot more. It was the minimum lot size for subdivision is only 600 square feet, unlike SB 1123, which is 1,200.
Okay, again, I don't have huge problems with any of the standards they put in, but it's just hard to visualize and in the future, if you could try to bring us something, and it doesn't have to be somebody's submitted plans, I'm not saying that.
It's hard to find examples that are like this in the city. There is currently one submitted online that anyone in the public can view if they would like, if you need, but I understand.
Okay, thank you for right
Yeah.
now, that's all I have.
Thank you. Just checking, Commissioner Fresco, do you have some questions?
You,
Why don't you go next? And just so you know, the next would have been Commissioner Landris, but I was going to ask you to read Commissioner Wasserman's.
I was going to do that during the discussion, just so you can hear what his, what he wanted to give
We wanted to
direction.
hear your thoughts on his questions.
yes.
So they weren't exactly questions, they were more recommendations. So I believe he is
Well,
rec-
can I, since we're there?
Well, can I jump
Yeah.
in then? If,
Yeah.
by all means.
if Commissioner Wasserman's were more comments than questions, then I think it would be appropriate to do them later.
We can pose them as questions, though.
You can, either way, I think we could
Yes.
do them either way. You can either pose them, if someone wants to read them out as questions, and ask what I feel about them, I can respond. Or I can read them into the record during the discussion portion, so you can hear what Commissioner Wasserman would have recommended.
All right, then let Commissioner Fresco, why don't you go ahead?
So I'm also having a little trouble envisioning, and so it's 1,200 in R1, it's 1,200 square feet per lot. That's ground area, or is it also airspace area?
It's any lot that is created either through fee simple or an airspace. Each of them have to be at minimum 1,200 square feet.
And maximum 1,750, or is that the actual building?
That's the
17?
unit size, not the actual parcel size.
So the unit could be 2 stories, and that's how it gets to
Correct.
17? Okay, so when you said average total floor area, it was the word total that,
So it's,
because that means per new subdivision lot, not per the whole parcel.
yeah, there are
added.
there are a couple state law provisions that kind of require us to look at the development in a totality and not just an individual lot. So if someone was providing 5 units through this, or 5 individual lots with 1 house on each of those lots, we would have to add up the square footages of each of those houses, divide by 5, and make sure the average comes to 1,750.
I
So you could have one significantly bigger, but then you're gonna have to have one smaller. It's just an
Okay.
average.
That's what I thought it meant when I read it and
Yeah.
then today.
Which is-
When I was listening to you, I suddenly
It's okay,
wasn't
I'm happy
sure
to
anymore.
clarify.
I didn't, so the reason they're doing that, I'm just guessing, and maybe you know, is because the idea is that these are affordable ownership housing, and so they don't want them to get too big. Because I know condo developers say, oh, we can't do it unless it's 2,500 square feet.
I'm not sure if the state law specifically states, why that size, but I think one could maybe take the leap in, small lot subdivisions and smaller units by nature are gonna, be affordable, or more affordable, just given their size, not necessarily like true affordable. And so they didn't want someone, to utilize this probably as mansionization. It's meant to be more units, not big units.
Right, right. So my other question has to do with what a vacant site is. So can somebody apply for a demo permit and then scrape the site and then apply for this?
Correct. There's nothing in the state law that says you had to be vacant as the date of July 1 when it became effective. So someone could apply tomorrow for a demo permit, go through the normal demo process, demo, and now they're eligible for 1123.
But I thought we couldn't demo unless we had our plans approved for what we're going to replace it
Not
with.
in the single unit district.
Oh, that's everywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's interesting. So, I mean, this gets into the letter that we received, several letters we received. I could not, looking at our code and looking at these provisions, I couldn't figure out what they meant by why R1 would have more generous provisions than R2. I couldn't,
So, well, I think this kind of actually goes to one of Commissioner Wasserman's statements. So if you were to adopt, or not you, but if council were to adopt their current policy of allowing a 1.5 FAR and 33 feet in height for R1 SB 1123 projects, both of those standards are greater than the standards that we currently allow in our multi-unit districts. So an R1 SB 1123 project could be bigger than a code compliant project in the R2.
but they would, but it would
There's
be-
always, yeah, unfortunately, it's case by case, but yes.
But it would be 1.5 floor area ratio to a much, 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 much smaller parcel. So it's not actually a bigger parcel or more parcels.
Potentially, yes, but there's still a totality of the building, because the 1.5 would
They're
kind of.
all 1.5.
Exactly. Or even if it applies to the entire structure, I mean, even the height alone, let's just focus on height. 33 feet of height is greater than the 30 feet of height in the R2.
Okay.
And I think that is what Commissioner Wasserman was getting at, that it was odd that R1 could be essentially bigger than a true multi-unit district.
So, and then I just had another AHPP question, which I'm basically asking you to repeat things you already said, but
Go for it.
sometimes I just need that. So we're going to eliminate the requirement, or council wishes to eliminate the requirement to require a single affordable unit for between one and,
So what it is, so how the HPP works of a development between up to 5 units, so 5 or fewer, could either provide an affordable unit or they could fee out and pay an in
Right.
lieu fee, which is for ownership units, it's about $51 per square foot. So it could add up to a big number. Once you hit 6 units, you have to provide an actual on-site affordable unit. So what the council's policy for the interim zoning ordinance was to essentially, the 5 and fewer are exempt from the HPP essentially. But if they provide 6, they would have to actually provide an affordable unit. Because they wouldn't even
how
have to
do
pay the
we get
fee.
money for affordable housing if we exempt those
Uh,
fees?
If council adopts their policy, you would not get an in lieu fee for 5 or fewer projects.
Okay, so in this case then, if they have to provide an affordable unit when they get to 6, they could avoid that by, oh no, well, in R1 they couldn't. They could avoid it by putting in an ADU instead, but that wouldn't work in R1 because you'd still have the same number of parcels.
You're saying ultimately they could build 4 units, so they're exempt from the HPP fee, assuming these amendments are adopted. And on each of those, do an ADU, essentially getting to at least 8 units and still getting an 8-unit project, but no HPP requirement, I think is what you're asking.
I can't remember now if we have moved to that point where we're allowing ADUs to be subdivided and sold now?
We do,
So could they do that on these?
Yeah, any ADUs in this,
So
in the
that's a total workaround then?
You
too.
can create ADU condominiums. It was a state law, AB 1033. Jurisdictions had to opt into it. We did a couple years ago. The second one in the state, San Jose beat us by a couple months, but we were the second one to allow it. I've yet to see anyone actually do it, though.
Right, right. And they say historic preservation gentrifies, just saying. Okay, go on.
So shall I still go ahead with Commissioner Wasserman, or do you want to go first, Commissioner Andrews?
I'll jump in because I want to follow on this.
All right, go ahead.
So let's just start with the four parcels and 4 ADUs leading to 8 units. And now we've sold off the 4 parcels. We've now subdivided into 4 parcels, and we've hived off the ADUs. Have we just taken a parcel that was previously subject to Measure SM and chopped it up into little pieces so that no transfer tax is paid, or owed or paid, because suddenly they are each below the threshold?
You know, I don't know the threshold, so I can't.
million.
Something tells me you're probably correct,
Yeah,
but
that's
I
bad.
don't, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, okay. Yeah, okay. The theme of my questions is, what's broken that we're fixing?
You know, I think the development world out there is hard.
Yeah.
Land costs, construction costs, tariffs, everything. We're seeing that, throughout the city in much larger projects. And, again, this could be there is nothing at the moment that I'm aware of that is required to utilize these standards. But again, I think it was council providing flexibility and to help remove any potential barriers to get these projects built so we can, meet our affirmatively furthering fair housing goals of getting 47 units in the R1 zoning district on average every year. It's another feather in the cap, along with 8 SB9 and the ADUs. It's, I'm not to speak for council, but that
Right.
I think is the point.
So it's above our pay grade to assess the urgency of the EIZO. And I recognize that there's pending litigation, so it's way above our pay grade. But more to the point of an EIZO is to say there's a problem and we're gonna take a swing at fixing it. But now we're not having that conversation. Council, having done what it did, then turned around and said, you know what? We need to go through a process, and there was the August 12th ROI that is now before us.
Correct.
To deliberate. So following Commissioner Reese's question, I think is a really important one, which is how many projects submitted under the EIZO standards? So far, none.
Yeah, correct.
I'll ask the follow-up question, which is how many developers have come to you and said, we would like to do something, but this doesn't work as currently written. We need something different.
None that I'm aware of, but I will say the reason why council staff originally brought the policy question specifically just about ADUs was because we were looking down the barrel of July 1
Right.
and we were getting questions. Can we do them? Can we not? So we needed council to weigh in on that policy question, as state law does allow a local jurisdiction to decide that component.
Correct.
At that hearing, that is when council expanded upon the IZO that staff originally brought just about ADUs. They added the development standards.
Okay. So, and again, not commenting about council's policymaking on an emergency basis. I'm sort of bringing it to the normal the other thing that Commissioner Wasserman likes to talk about is doing this work through the normal deliberative
Which is
process.
this.
Right. So then it raises a question for me of my understanding, and this is sort of maybe a Michelle question, is things that council does in an EIZO don't create a floor for a successive housing element, right? In other words, we can experiment in EIZOs and IZOs, and if we go back to a previous standard, it's not like HCD is going to turn around and say, we are not ratcheting.
It's like down zoning essentially.
We're not
your
down
question.
zoning, right, exactly.
Yeah, we haven't evaluated that, but I don't think that would be the case here. State law requires a certain.
Yeah.
We've gone above and beyond, but we'd have to analyze that further. But an initial thought, we're thinking likely no, but we'd like to look into that a little bit more.
So, my understanding is that the EIZO process does not create a ratchet from which we would be called.
I would agree. Those are
accused of down
interim.
zoning,
Those are
right.
not codified into the code.
The minute we do this,
I think,
We're in a new
again,
world.
to reiterate, the deputy city attorney, that's not a legal analysis we've evaluated yet.
Okay.
And obviously if that, and it would be fact specific, and we would look at, if that question were raised, we would have to look at that through
Sure.
a more detailed way.
And just for the record, the EIZO expires was the end of next
Yeah.
year, so it was a limited term.
Okay.
So yeah, we would need to evaluate that.
Totally understood. My point is that anything we do through the regular ROI deliberative process that creates a permanent change to the zoning code, that's fair game, right? Potentially.
Potentially,
Potentially.
yes.
We want to
More-
tread carefully.
More likely
Right.
on that piece.
So I'm looking at these proposed modifications. Yeah, you can go back to the
Do you want the table
the
better?
table is
Okay.
useful.
Okay.
And I'm also noting your kind of recitation in the code of standards that the state is adjusting. And as much as I am in favor of liberalizing our development standards to try to get where we're going, and this is not discussion, there's a question at the end of this, I am really concerned about the loss of innovation, trial and error, figuring things out, and getting us being able to like roll back something that just doesn't work. So my question here is, for example, why are we rushing to 1.5? Why are we rushing to 3 stories in R1? We could talk about setbacks, right, because that's a more technical issue, but on the FAR and the height, which is what caused many of us to lose hair follicles over the last, when we did the R1 mansionization, I am really hesitant to reopen those, and particularly because I'm afraid of what happens in the next housing element. So what is the rationale for pushing beyond the state standard today?
Council wanted to provide more flexibility and remove barriers to make, if needed, to make these projects more feasible. If a little extra more square footage is what they needed, council wanted to provide that beyond state law.
In the absence of evidence that we have people saying, you've only given me 1.0 FAR and I really need 1.1.
There has been no project submitted that has utilized these emergency ordinance provisions.
Okay, I'm gonna stop there for now, and,
Excellent point.
yeah.
Thank you. Do you have another question? Well, if you don't mind, I'll go first. I actually just have one question, and it's sort of related to one that has been asked already, but, and I know in a previous presentation, you did do some exploration of ADUs on various sites. I want to know specifically if we've looked at the worst-case scenario of a 1,200 square foot lot with a ADU, because it does seem really packing it in there.
Sure.
And I'm curious about whether anyone has thought about the feasibility of that.
Ultimately, it's for the developer to decide if these projects are feasible for them, if they really pencil. The public example that we have submitted, not to utilize them, but, is a 13,000 square foot lot, and they seem to be only able to squeeze in 8. But this was to kind of provide some analysis of, well, if you have a 10,000, you could get up to 8. This would be the FAR you would get, but you would need to now divide that, let's say 1.25 FAR, that 12,500 square feet. You have to divide that by maybe 8 units. Is those square footages sellable for you? Ultimately, that's not something I can weigh in on as far as, does this make sense for developers?
All right, thank you.
Let's follow up on
Another question?
follow up on that. If I'm doing math, and that's always a struggle for me, that's units that are less than 2,000 square feet on the 10,000 square foot parcel?
I'm going to assume that the math that you did is correct. I'm also not,
Beginners.
but remember,
Trying to figure out what the so if I have a 10,000 square foot parcel, I'm allowed 15,000 square feet, and I get 8 units, that's gonna be somewhere less than 2,000 square feet per unit.
can I just interrupt you real quick, though? The council's direction, though, although to give 1.5 FAR, did not remove the 1750 average unit size. That still currently is not proposed to be amended.
Okay, but I guess where where I was kind of heading with that is, that's not an outrageously large unit at less than 2,000 square feet and no less than 1,750. So I just throw that out there that, 1.5 does sound big in an R1 lot, but when you're looking at multiple units, you're not getting huge units. I know it's an average, so I could have one that's
Sure.
12,000.
is big.
2,000 is less than the average single-family house in those.
I live in a 1,500.
Yeah, and when was yours built?
Yeah,
And me
most
too.
of it's
And me
leaving-
too.
yeah.
But when was it built?
Long time ago.
1903.
And they don't build them that way anymore.
But I understand what you're saying. 15,000 looks big, but when you divide it by 8,
That's all I was trying to point out.
yeah.
Right. It's a little less. I mean, still, it's 33 feet and 15, it's a lot of, it's a
Yeah,
lot. Remind me again, how many multifamily and single-family building permits we kicked out this year?
I know I don't have that number off the top of my head.
It's
is-
probably less than 5.
Less than 5.
Like new, you mean new construction? Yeah, I mean, I can think one off the top of my head, maybe two. Like
I would
it's-
say, especially in our multifamily, like those would go through the AA process, and right now we're not getting a lot of
Oh,
multifamily.
no, yeah, I was thinking building permits.
Yeah, I'm
Building
talking about
permits,
building
no,
permits,
it's,
not
it's
entitlements.
definitely like less than 5.
Right. So I think that also plays into why this council's trying to create flexibility, is we have nothing happening in terms of.
It's hard to build right now.
So
But giving
I
away
wanna
the
s-
farm isn't
well,
going to change that.
I want to get back to a more deliberative process where we spend more time looking at things and we recommend up. But I do see some of the value of what the council is trying to do. But let's discussion, we'll get to that. I'm done.
Do we have more questions?
Yeah,
I do.
I do.
I do. It's my turn.
Let me start with Commissioner Landers.
I'll just very quickly, I believe it was in the an SB 9 conversation a couple of years ago where we were tiering by lot size. Was there any thought, I'm just trying to organize my thoughts. Was there any thought on the part of staff of tiering by lot size to address the micro unit concern so that, to your point, we do have some very large lots that could sustain a quite aggressive subdivision, but we've also heard from a lot of people who are concerned about the 6,000 and smaller square foot
So
lots.
just to catch everyone up, so in SB 9, part of the housing element program was, so SB 9 at its core is you can lot split, you can do a duplex, but ultimately you cannot do more than 4 units collectively. We, through our housing element program, allowed for parcels 10,000 square feet or greater to go beyond 4 units through more ADU development, essentially. Staff did not consider that, as we were directed by council to facilitate their policy, but a recommendation could definitely be from the commission to maybe only allow ADUs again, only on certain parcel sizes or square footages, only on when you're above a certain size, as you said, that can maybe handle more development. That could definitely be a recommendation.
And SB 1123 does give us the flexibility
Yes.
to
Yes, do whatever.
use a scalpel rather than an axe.
Yes.
I have a question.
Yes, Commissioner
Now I forgot it.
Lambert, go ahead.
One of my major concerns, and that of a number of people who wrote to us, is that there's been zero public participation on this issue. And I don't want to embarrass you, because I know you're under a lot of pressure from, what council did and the timing, et cetera. We never do anything without public participation. It took us months to get a hedge height ordinance and months to do the R1 rezoning. I mean, this has just been pushed through, and I don't really even see the urgency of it, given that SB 1123 already exists and people can build under it, and people apparently are. So I'm not even sure I'm ready to act tonight because of the complete absence of public participation and outreach and explaining what we're doing. I'm very uncomfortable with that. And I know you're under an incredible time strain, and it's certainly not your fault, but I'm uncomfortable.
I would hope that, this is hopefully providing some level of public
I asked him
participation,
what
but I
he's
understand
done.
what you're saying.
Okay.
What public process has been in place?
What would I
mean,
do without you?
There has been, there is various council meetings that kind of led to this point. There has been no formal outreach. I've had meetings with neighborhood or entities that have contacted me. And then ultimately, it's led us to here, which is also, a public forum.
What would happen if we did an ordinance that may not look like the IZO, but only covered certain sections of it? Like the ADUs and the,
So your recommendation would be, we like some of this, but not the other parts of it. That could very much be your recommendation. You could only do the ADUs and nothing else.
or the FAR and the whatever.
Your recommendation could also be, we don't recommend any of this.
But the AHPP we could put on hold.
If you want to recommend to council to not do the HPP elimination, you could recommend
Well, until we
that.
know what we're doing, it would be a good idea.
Then you can make that recommendation to not include that in the adoption.
Commissioner Fresco?
I
You have a
don't have
question?
more questions.
No questions, all right. So let's move to public comment. And hopefully I'm not mangling the name, but I'm going to try my best. The first speaker would be John Alley. Yes. And then the next one, Mark Berenstein, and then finally Richard Milanesi. So we'll start with John Alley.
Thanks. Good to be here. I believe an emergency evacuation route capacity analysis is needed to ensure the safe evacuation of people in Santa Monica before any of this moves forward. The safe evacuation of people in Santa Monica at any given time of day or night in the event of a firestorm or emergency is needed. I lost multiple properties in the Palisades. I have multiple properties in Santa Monica, residential and commercial, some occupied by family. What we saw in the Palisades were long lines of people, fire trucks, firefighters, police unable to get in, and people trying to exit and abandoning cars. And what makes Santa Monica different is that here there are 37 miles of curbed bike lanes and 40 to 60 miles more planned, making streets narrow, lines and delays. Speed bumps are here as well. That delays fire trucks. Trying to evacuate old people and disabled is going to be very hard when you add 25 people to a single lot. And that's what we're doing. We're increasing the population. I believe you to be caring and reasonable, all of you. And as decision makers, recommending, approving, I don't recommend, I'm asking you not to recommend. Excuse me, can you wait until I'm finished? I waited here. Thanks. I'm asking you to delay recommending, approving, or making a decision tonight until this analysis is figured out as far as an evacuation. No one here has talked about that. Thanks. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The next speaker is Mark Berenstein. Did I pronounce that right?
Borenstein.
Borenstein?
Yes. Thank you. Very good, thank you. My name is Mark Borenstein. I live on Stanford Street, and I was quite interested in the comments that, or the questions that the commissioners asked. But let me first give you my, what I wanted to come here, and then maybe also weigh in on some of the things that Ross said and some of the questions that you asked. First, the obvious, the proposed SB 1123 ordinance before you is exactly the same as the emergency ordinance. It's cut and paste from the emergency ordinance. Staff included no analysis of the expected benefits or detriments of the emergency ordinance when it went before the council. It was a direction from one council member that was adopted by four of the other council members. But at the time, when several of us pointed out that there was no analysis of the impacts that these things would do, staff and the council said, well, we're going to try it for a while. We're going to come back. We're going to show you what works and what doesn't work. We're going to do an analysis that the planning department regularly does for you and for us and for the city council. Well, Guess what? The second obvious point is no one has vetted these standards. No one has vetted whether, as some of you have said, you can fit ADUs on these parcels, or whether you can actually build to a 1.5 FAR, or whether 3 stories in an R1 zone makes sense for the people of Santa Monica. For those of you who were on the commission in 2022, when you were doing the housing element, you remember that when SB9, the portion of SB9 came to you, you had a study session, you had recommendations, you had different options that were presented. None of that exists with the proposed ordinance, because it's just the emergency ordinance. And I submit, although Ross, I agree, has done an admirable job, he believes that he has direction from the council that these are the things that need to be in an ordinance. And he doesn't. He doesn't. In fact, the council allowed for the possibility that they would come to you when they sent the resolution of intent, and you would come up with something different, or you would defer your decision until the planning department did the analysis that we do not yet have. There is no direction from the city council right now. We're on a blank slate, and the planning department should come to you and say, this is what makes sense for Santa Monica. These are the benefits, these are the detriments. Maybe we should just live with the state ordinance for the state statute, which every other city in the state is relying on. Every other city in the state is relying on. Of course, I would love to have one more minute.
There are other speakers.
Question? I'm gonna ask him a question.
Go ahead.
Is there one thing that you're dying to tell me?
Yes, the one plan, the one submitted application that was submitted to the planning department is on Stanford Street. It's the exact property that they came to you with connection with SB9. And you want to know where the 1.5 comes from, or the 3 stories comes from? It comes from the developer who proposed to Jesse Zwick this in an email in December and January of 2025. So there's been no vetting.
I got your point.
Okay.
Thank you.
My understanding is that the Stanford project is in compliance with SB 1123.
It's not in compliance yet. They just submitted the application.
But in terms of FAR, and there are no ADUs.
No, there are no ADUs, and it's in compliance with the state law. But
That's what I meant.
But we don't really know if it's in compliance with the state law because they haven't submitted a housing plan yet.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
The next speaker is Richard Milanesi,
Thank you.
and you have 3 minutes.
What's really on my mind, really? Thank you very much. I appreciate all of your questions that you're asking Ross, and Ross, as usual, a masterful job, even though we kind of disagree on a lot of things, but I certainly do appreciate your effort. Anyway, my name's Richard Milanesi. I live on Stanford Street also, not too far from the 1101 Stanford project that we all object to. But let me just read a short paragraph. I'm struggling to understand why the zoning ordinance needs to be changed. Has a thorough analysis been conducted to show that these changes make sense for Santa Monica? From your questions, I see no. From the outside, it appears as though this commission is simply accommodating the city council, or perhaps maybe the planning department. Whatever decisions you make regarding changing or frankly dismantling zoning protections, this radical city council will likely ignore you, and especially the concerns of single-family homeowners. That's their thrust, and you know that as well as I do. So you are the planning commission, and I have always had the utmost respect for you. I've come to meetings occasionally and rarely speak, but I appreciate your efforts very much, and I know that you give your time, and you only get paid like, what, $40 a meeting or something? Okay, so, but anyway, what is happening here? We'd like to know what's happening. I know you all have your doubts about this, and I'm so gratified to see that. So whose interests are you prioritizing? Those of an out-of-control city bureaucracy or those of a sincere Santa Monica homeowner? By the way, I do appreciate your service. Again, I appreciate your service on this commission, but really look at this. Is it necessary? It's just excess. It's excess. And what about the what do we call it? The zoning ordinances? I mean, why do you want to just throw everything out? Why? Are any of you R1 homeowners? I've lived in my house for 33 years on Stanford Street. Before that, I've been in Santa Monica for 40 years. I raised my family here, and we love our home. And I don't know why the city, and you all blame the state. Nobody sticks up for the city. Why do you want to destroy R1 neighborhoods? Why? Because you don't have one? That's why you want to destroy it? I mean, I don't get it. I just don't get it. I trust you're going to vote against this. I trust that you're going to do that because I see your wisdom. That's what's in my heart, okay? Thank you so much.
We do have one late chit. I'm going to suggest we go ahead and hear it.
To hear it?
Yeah.
For the regular time.
All right, yes, for 3 minutes. Apologize, I can't read the handwriting very well. Hearth Thomas, is that right? Heather Thomas. Heather?
I've never had great handwriting.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry, I was expecting comments before the presentation for some reason. So, good evening, commissioners. My name is Heather Thomason, and first I just want to thank you for your dedication to our city. I've attended several commission meetings in the past year and have been genuinely impressed by the thoughtfulness and expertise you bring to these decisions. And that's one of a number of reasons why I'm disappointed to see the City Council essentially erasing your careful work on R1 standards through these rushed ordinances. This ordinance matters enormously because SB 1123 projects seem likely to become a dominant framework for development in our R1 neighborhoods. As currently proposed, our City Council is opening the door to huge swaths of Santa Monica suddenly becoming as much as theoretically 25-unit developments that are 3 stories high with minimal setbacks. And even if it's half that, 12 units on a 6,000 square foot lot, on every other lot even, it's so much, so fast. State law requires only that we allow lot splits with 1 dwelling unit per parcel. This ordinance permits 4 ADUs per parcel, meaning state law requires 5 units total, meaning this law, we're allowing, state law requires 5 units total, where our city council is asking us to permit 25 on a 6,000 square foot lot potentially. If we want to go above and beyond state requirements and allow ADUs on these lot splits, let's allow 1, not 4 on each new parcel. And why are we in the same breath allowing those to go to 3 stories? These are radical changes that were not imagined or embraced by the community. This state law was passed to expand affordable home ownership, yet this ordinance eliminates affordable housing fees and seems designed to create small rental units. What are we doing here? From what I understand, our R1 standards were created through months and months of hard work by this planning commission. People who are sitting here right now and through a lot of community engagement around it. We are seeing none of that now as this is being rushed through for reasons that are totally unclear. Very few people outside a small handful of very engaged residents have had any idea about what is about to happen. I urge you, to the extent that you go along with this process at all, given how unconventional it has been, to recommend limiting ADUs to one per parcel if at all, retain our 2-story maximums, and please insist on genuine community engagement. And as to the question of whether affordable housing fees should apply to projects like this, which it seems like they should, given that we're essentially creating apartment buildings with this ordinance, I see no justification for waiving them. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for hearing me after the fact. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do
you have any questions?
Do you have a question?
I have a suggestion, a process suggestion.
Okay.
Not a question
Heather?
for the speaker?
No, I don't have a question, no. I have a process suggestion. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, please.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and offer a process suggestion. If we take a vote tonight, our thoughts will go on the record. This will go to council. Council will act. The only tool we have, we've used this before, the only tool we have to encourage more public engagement on this issue is to continue the matter.
That's right.
respect to Ross and Jing and the staff, they have a lot on their plate, and we can't ask them to do the analyses. I mean, like, we can say we ought to have these analyses, but ultimately, they're on a work plan. They aren't going to do it. It's not up to us. We can't tell them to, but we can slow this process down, and we have done that in the past. That having been said, I do think it's helpful to get to a place on some straw polling, to get a sense of this group on where we think we might land with a recommendation, so that at the end of the night, if we do continue this and reopen the public hearing, to get a chance to hear from more stakeholders in the conversation on December 17th, at least there's a sense of where we are. And, commenters alluded to our questions. We didn't even get to specific points. So the process suggestion that I'd like to make is, I think we should sort of take some straw polls on where we stand, so that there's a record on how we're feeling, the 5 of us. Hopefully we'll be 7 on the 17th. And then continue this to the 17th with encouraging the public to really communicate with planning staff and come back on the 17th and participate in that meeting. I do want to say one other thing, quoting Anna Karenina: happy families are all alike, and every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. I ran the public comment through Claude.ai. There were 18 identical letters in favor of this. Happy families are all alike. But Claude observed that each of the opposition letters was unique. And that tells me we need more conversation in order to get to a place that is respectful of the work that this team has done so well over the last few years. And we have pushed housing when council has tried to slow the roll, and now it's our time to slow the roll and make sure we're getting this right.
Thanks.
I just have a couple comments to make. Okay.
Yes, I was actually just going to suggest, I like the suggestion that you made regarding a straw poll, but I think it'll be helpful if we can get a brief comment from each person first. So should we start at that end, Commissioner Fresco?
I'm very uncomfortable with waiving the AHPP fees. And, I feel like the affordable part is core to what we should be doing with all of these things. And I mean, we're supposed to be making affordable home ownership housing, but we're not collecting fees for affordable housing. So in that light, I would not be comfortable waiving those fees. And I'm also a little perturbed about the possibility of an ADU workaround to providing that unit. So I would feel more comfortable if we didn't permit ADUs unless there were 6 or more units, regular units being developed. And then we can allow whatever ADUs, because we're getting our affordable unit. So those are the kind of things. And as far as the 33 1.5 issue, I really feel like the community, I'm sorry, Ross, but we really need pictures, diagrams. You made such beautiful diagrams for R1. They were so great. And I feel like I understand, that overall that's more than R2 and all that, but I want to see what that looks like really. And that, I think, would be really helpful if we just asked that one thing of you, if we continue this, to see that.
Great. Thank you.
Okay,
Go ahead.
I'm totally in favor of continuing this, but I also want to say that I live on Ashland. I own a house on Ashland. I totally support SB 1123 because I think it's a way to bring affordable home ownership into R1, which we need. Young people can't afford to buy a house in Santa Monica, and I'm willing to share my neighborhood with them. And so that's my position. But we need to make it compatible and workable for everybody, and that's our job. I don't know where I stand on the AHPP because I don't think anybody else does either. I think the fees were waived without any factual information whatsoever, and we're imposing on-site AHPP for 6 or more units. We have no idea if that works or not. And until I'm more comfortable with the project and AHPP's relationship, I don't even want to mention AHPP. What I do want to do is, if possible, take the exclusion of it out of the IZO. I also really support Sean's idea that if we upzone here to 3 stories and 33 feet and a 1.5 FAR, and then we find down the road that that doesn't work, or it's not needed, and we want to downzone, we're going to get smashed by the state. So we really should start out small, and that small would be the language of 1123. We don't want to go in big, because again, if we reduce that, the state's going to be all over us, and we don't want to do that. And I think that was a mistake of the IZO. I don't support 3 stories in R1. I know what 3 stories look like because I live next door to a 30-foot house. And it doesn't take a lot of imagination to know the impact of that on a 1-story single-family house. I don't really need a picture to show me that. I think 3 stories is not okay in an R1 neighborhood, so we should not do that. And that's where the 33 feet comes from. So, I mean, that's my opinion. I'm willing to be swayed one way or the other, but that's where I stand on it. So I think we should incorporate or suggest, I guess we're putting it over for not really doing anything, just basically the language of SB 1123 from the standpoint of FAR. And in terms of ADUs, I think we really need to think about that. I don't think we can allow 1 ADU per unit, maybe 1 ADU per 3 units or 4 units or 2 units. We really need to look at that in site capacity, and I'm not ready to do that tonight.
I'll jump in and just say, number one, meaningful public process. We need more of it. If staff is not in a position to convene or do more of it, I respect that. So I'll just issue a call here to the public and whoever's listening to please get involved and communicate. Whether you are, whether you are a resident or someone who's looking to develop or someone who's thinking about this, pros and cons. We need to hear from more people. I echo, I see no reason to go beyond SB 1123 provisions on height and FAR. And in fact, I want to be more specific. I want to make sure that we are allowing our standards to be overridden by the state. I do not want to create new standards that could cause us to end up in a downzoning problem on our next housing cycle. We went through hell last time. It's why we had a builder's remedy. We need to keep all the tools in our toolkit. We need to follow the law. We need to move slowly and respond when we see that what we are doing is insufficient to meet our goals, because that we don't want to do. But I don't want to get out over our skis. I am very uncomfortable having a theoretical conversation about HPP without a feasibility study. Full stop. Just doesn't pass the smell test for me. I will say that I love the idea of moderate rate units in the larger subdivisions. I think that's great. The more moderate rate we can get in Santa Monica, the better. But I think this has to be on the basis of a real economic analysis in the current tariffed environment, in the current labor environment, in the current all of the constraints that have emerged around construction post-COVID, post-tariffs, post-everything else. I would like to defer to staff. I mean, we can have this, we can workshop this next time, but I would like to tier the ADU rules. I think it's a really interesting idea to look at 1 for every 2, to look at ADUs on the larger lot sizes, ADUs on the larger parcel subdivisions. I'm happy to workshop that, but I would really like to offer staff the chance to do that first and to think it through with us and give us some models to play with. But I don't think it's appropriate to, I think we should follow the model we established with the SB9 and the housing element, build from there, and really respect the people who are concerned about massive subdivisions on the 6,000 or, I think we had conversation around 7,500 square feet, I think. You had a cool map with the breakdowns and where lot sizes tended to ratchet up and down. And then lastly, I do want to flag, I just looked up Measure GS, I guess it was GS. I want to flag my concern about using this to completely undermine the transfer tax. I have my own thoughts about the transfer tax, but I also believe that, right, as we're seeing it play out here and in LA, and it's really complicated, but I do believe that the law is a law, and I don't want to do something that's going to create a pathway for people to just immediately eviscerate the point of that law. We can debate its finer points, but we need money for affordable housing, and we need money for our schools, which is what we all voted for. And I don't like the idea of passing new development standards that make it possible to not spend that money.
Thank you. Commissioner Reese?
It's frustrating. It's the first thing that comes to mind. I don't like really having ordinances, created and then come to us and say, here, comment on them. So I'd like to see a different process going forward on projects. I know in some cases that has to happen. And I do think that, taking time and kind of reviewing these things makes a lot of sense. But I gotta tell you, I'm a little scared by what I'm hearing. I hear some NIMBYism coming out from us, and I hear a fear of some of the tools in the toolbox that we're excited to have, and now we have them, and we're saying, yeah, we shouldn't use those maybe. So I'm hoping that I'm misunderstanding that. And I understand the value for outreach and public process, but I want to ask, do you really think that the R1 folks are going to come out and say, yeah, you should definitely divide up our land? It's not the point, but you're going to sit here and listen to you're going to put, whoever has to listen to that is going to listen to a lot of grief about it. And we know that their grief's there, and they're not excited about that. And I'm concerned about the city of Santa Monica, that if we don't find ways to build housing, again, we had less than 5 permits issued this year. We're going to be back at builder's remedy land. And that's a horrible place to be. So I just want us to be careful and thoughtful, and I think we all want to do that. And I look forward to, that discussion moving forward. And I look forward to, discussing more about the affordability in AHP. But when I hear $50 a square foot for affordable, it doesn't surprise me we don't see a lot of development, right? I mean, these are the kind of the ornaments on the tree that every one of them by themselves makes perfect sense. But when we add all the ornaments on the tree, it's problematic, and we're just not seeing the results of our hard work. Again, I like the direction you guys were talking about, but those are my initial thoughts.
Sure, go ahead.
Just
I'll
want to,
follow you.
because I want to be really clear that it's not coming from any kind of NIMBYism, and there's a lot in the letters of opposition that I really strongly disagree with. The point is, I remember during the SB 9 conversation, there was a really thoughtful presentation which said, look, in the R1 envelope, you can build a really cool triplex or quadplex. And from a neighborhood standpoint, you wouldn't even know that it was a triplex or a quadplex within that development envelope. And I supported that 100%, even though there were people who were saying, no, we can't. I mean, I live on a block that has everything. And I'm all for it. What scares me, and it's not a R1 fear, we need innovation, and we need creativity, and we need to be able to try stuff out. And we live in an environment where the ratchet only moves in one direction, and then the hammer of HCD comes down. If we had the ability if we had true opportunity under state law to try stuff out and roll it back, then I'd say, let's give it a shot. Let's find some places where we could do this. Let's see if a 3-story R1 building is so terrible, because maybe it's not. But I'm just worried about getting stuck and then chewed up by the ratchet.
Incredibly valid.
And that's what I'm really worried about. So that's why I'm expressing myself that way.
All right. Andrews, I'd like to just briefly express my thoughts, and I see you guys have some more to say.
I just have one comment.
All right. I'd like to just say that my primary concern is about the process. And I guess I'm reiterating what some of you have said, and for me, it's worth reiterating. But I also want to say that I'm supportive of the concepts behind SB 1123. But when we are going above and beyond, which we should certainly consider doing, I worry about a very top-down process that is very explicit, that speaks to very specific numbers. As a professional planner, I think I have a pretty above average understanding of what that is, and it worries me when that happens. I've also seen in the past staff do very good, very thoughtful presentations that analyze provisions and give us background on it. And it would appear that in this circumstances, there wasn't room provided for that. And that worries me further. So for me, just on a matter of principle, I would be comfortable with one of two things, either not supporting this entirely or seeking a continuance. But I would like personally to send a message that as a plan commissioner, I don't feel that my role is being used adequately. We might as well not be part of the process, rather than be in a process where a proposal is spelled out in great detail, top down, without any room for discussion or analysis. So with that,
I just want to clarify something. Ross, how many units and how many projects have come in for permits since we did the offsite? Thousands, isn't it?
So right now, the offsite is only available to up to 1,000
I
units. I
understand.
think 6 projects, around 1,000 units.
So we have a lot moving right now because of the offsite, and that will continue. So it's not like we're down to dribbling 4 or 5 permits a year. The other thing I want to say, and I mean, there are only a couple people in my life who've ever insinuated that I'm a NIMBY. I know that's not what you were doing, because I'm certainly not a NIMBY. But I think we need to consider that there are people impacted by what we're doing. And we can't not consider them, and I think that's the fault of some people in certain positions in this city. R1 people have an interest, whether we, and for me, provision of affordable homeownership in R1 is frankly more important. But you also have to consider their point of view, and you may not accept it, but you have to listen to it. And I think that's not happened. And that's what I want to do. And if it comes down to being I know what it's like living next to a 3-story building in a 12-foot tall apartment, a house. You have no sunlight in your backyard, you have no sunlight in your rooms. I mean, it impacts you, and that's important. So I just want to point that out.
I had 2 things, or a couple of things. Well, first of all, as the only person probably in this room who actually lived in a 20-story building, I can tell you I'm not scared of that. So that's where I grew up. And I am also very uncomfortable with the top-down thing because, I remember Jing used to tell us, well, we're discussing that and the staff is back there discussing these things and we're still working out our recommendations. And it's like, do you guys get to discuss stuff anymore? So, I would also like to benefit from our fine staff's ideas as well. Our city council members have lots of ideas and that's great, but they shouldn't replace everybody else's ideas. We should all be working together more. But another really curious thing that I'm not qualified to answer is we have tried so hard to adopt the spirit of the state laws that are coming down to us as liberally and as enthusiastically as we can. And we're still not getting what we want. And is it really that our laws are too restrictive, or is it all those other things and the tariffs and the people who are afraid to come out on the street and work and all of those other things that are actually not the problem? And should we keep breaking our structures down and giving away the things that represent our values? For me, giving away, affordable housing fees is really painful because, we're not helping anybody by doing that. And, that breaks our systems and it breaks our values. So how can we know that change, it's like what you were saying, we start small. We don't really know if breaking things, we just, sorry, I'm jumping around, but, we just did the thing where, that special experiment where, the 6 projects rushed into, and that reduced the amount or delayed and reduced the amount of affordable housing they would overall in the end be providing for us. Have they broke ground? Did that make a difference? Did that change anything, or did they just put in new applications to do that?
Yeah, I think for clarity, all they submitted was applications. You know, no permits or, you know, no permits have been issued as a result of that program yet. It's still very early, you know, so certainly, I think even for that pilot program, it remains to be seen. I think all you can say is that there was interest.
So it seems to me that that was a pretty big move that we made to make that choice, and that's a pilot program. Maybe we should wait and see how that pans out and see if breaking down all of these rules or any of these rules will really make a difference in us actually getting shovels in the ground and that kind of thing.
Yes, Commissioner Landris?
I think we've all, given that I think we've all expressed ourselves on the points, and I think maybe next time we'll have Commissioners Hamilton and Wasserman here to weigh in as well. I'm going to move that we continue this to the meeting of December 17th, and for clarity, I would welcome additional thoughts from staff, particularly on the ADU tiering, and welcome Commissioner Lambert to do what Commissioner Wasserman did for tonight and let us know how you feel. But I do want to be clear that we want to reopen the public hearing on the 17th as well, so that we can take public comment and work from there and get council our thoughts by the end of the year. But let's buy a month to hear from more folks. And I, again, reiterate my call to anyone who has a stake in this conversation: architects, developers, builders, residents, business owners, whoever you are, people concerned about mobility, people concerned about all the things. Tell us what you think. We will read your comments and take them seriously, all of them, even if we disagree with them.
Commissioner Lambert, do you have something? Oh,
No, I'm just not going to be here on the 17th, but I'll do a Jacob thing. I'll write you.
Will you second my motion?
Second, that too.
sorry, could you clarify your motion briefly?
Let's continue to the 17th.
It is continued to the 17th with hopes for more staff input, but clarity that we are reopening the hearing, because when we continue stuff, we have to be really clear that we'll take public comment next time too.
All right, great. And do you have a second? Yeah.
So the motion's to continue to December 17th to provide more public input and some additional recommendations from staff. Okay, the Commissioner Fresco,
Yes.
Commissioner Lambert,
Yes.
Commissioner Landris.
Yes.
Commissioner Reese,
Yes.
Vice Chair Chaco.
Yes.
I just want to say, because I'm not going to be here on the 17th, I am deeply concerned about the lack of public input that's gone into the ICO. Deeply concerned.
Right. So I think that concludes item 11. And so we now go back to item 9, is that right? Okay, so we have a staff presentation.
It's not exactly a presentation, just kind of a
Yes.
overview of what this is. So this is the required annual questionnaire, which is meant to state the Planning Commission's mission, statement, responsibilities, jurisdictions, and the authority as stipulated in the charter. But mainly, it is meant to commemorate all of the accomplishments of the commission over the last fiscal year and lay out the commission's future work plan goals. I would like to note that the work plan, of course, is subject to change and not all items may be accomplished. I think we have a lengthy, at the moment, 16 plus a couple more. And we're already, 4 months into the fiscal year. So it is subject to change. And not all these may be accomplished. Also, much of the work plan is ultimately at the discretion of council policy and city manager prioritization. But this is really an overview of what you guys did last fiscal year and staff's kind of ideas of things we already know about that are already current work plans or could be future work plans that, we have a lot of things kind of on the back burner whenever we find time to get to them. So we would love to hear you weigh in if you feel like additional items could be added. And that's really the staff presentation.
Thank you.
I'm gonna agree with Commissioner Wasserman that it would be, sorry, my mic is off. I'm gonna jump in. I agree with Commissioner Wasserman, and so in his name want to ask planning, community development and the clerk to look at the remote participation requirement. My county commission figured it out, to be honest. I recognize that it is a burden, and the recommendation that I would make is that we should have it, and commissions that are like us should have it, whether it's charter or quasi-judicial. I think it's very important to facilitate full participation.
Already state law regarding that,
yeah.
so we are starting to look into that.
Okay.
I don't think it necessarily needs to be a work plan item, as it's not a work plan of you all, it's, the city
Right.
looking into it.
This is going to be something that the city clerk, because all Brown Act boards and commissions are subject to these new rules that require the teleconferencing.
Oh, it's
like-
now, 707 now requires it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, it is. So this is
Okay.
going to have to be figured out across the board.
Great.
Obviously, council has that capability already, and we'll have to make it available.
Terrific. I do agree. I understand the nuance of being reactive versus being proactive. I think one way to address Commissioner Wasserman's recommendation for proactive engagement on the zoning piece is in item 14, where we say annual comprehensive zoning ordinance cleanup. We could add planning commission recommendations for future action or something that's broad enough to allow for that input. My two other items that I would like to put on the work plan are, we usually get a bike action plan update once every 18 months. We haven't had one. And, okay, this is a thing, and I was in touch with staff about it. The last two projects that I saw up close, the public works projects that I saw up close, were the Stewart Street Light at Olympic, which is amazing now. I'm just going to say the outcome is fantastic. The process of getting there in terms of wayfinding was dreadful. And then the Pico repaving it didn't finish timely, and the notifications weren't great. I've had exchanges with staff about this, but the work plan that I would like to propose is a conversation at some point about communications during planned city construction, communications planning. We do have oversight of infrastructure, and I think it would be really helpful to have an opportunity to talk about who's notified, when, and whether or not there might be changes to the notification plans that other commissioners think might be useful, that are not just based on a 500-foot radius or a 1,000-foot radius, but maybe in terms of who drives through this area on their commute, and maybe we expand our thoughts on partnerships. That's getting into the actual stuff, but I'd like to add sort of communications around mobility impacting projects.
Great. Any other comments?
I have one comment.
Commissioner Fresco?
Every year when we look at this and I look at our mission statement, I feel very pleased and proud. And then when I look at our responsibilities, jurisdiction, and authority, I cringe and feel ashamed, and because of the last sentence, which says the commission will also make recommendations concerning proposed public works. That's okay. And for the clearance and rebuilding of blighted or substandard areas within the city, which is what we don't do anymore. And it's very troubling to me that those words are still in our documents here, so.
It's largely the charter language that probably has not been updated for a long time, but
Right, but we're supposed to be looking at that and clearing out biased, terrible things from our laws, and I'm flagging that one.
The blight is in the language.
It sure is. I also, well, I'm related to
To give
this.
some context, there was, we actually had a planning commission retreat, some years ago. And that's when that,
Mission
that's why
statement.
actually the mission statement is different than what the charter, it was an update on it, because although the charter has that statement, what the commission at the time came up with was a more modernized version of it, recognizing, a charter amendment was obviously a big move. But I think I think for those maybe that might not remember that process,
Right.
you know, it was recognized at the time it was outdated.
Were you here when we did that?
I don't recall who was.
Yeah, I don't remember if
It
anybody.
was brand new, and I thought to myself, I have thoughts, but I'm going to keep them minimal because there was so much work done to get this beautiful mission statement done that I'm going to just endorse it. I think I asked for well-being. It was really hard for me. No, you know what?
Had no
I got
idea
the
how
word
hard it-
well-being added to the mission statement. That was the thing that I got added.
Did make
was-
a contribution.
That was what I had in my application to be on the planning commission. I wanted to bring well-being to it, so we're in there.
Yeah. Well, I like the part where it says open and civil discourse informed by public input, impartial analysis, and best practices.
All right. Are there any other comments?
No, I
right.
think it's a beautiful
I'm gonna-
report.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna throw in the same thing I've thrown in there for 15 years that I've done this is code enforcement always seems to be a problem. And that's maybe not our work process, but the city work process is having more code enforcement. Because we have tons of rules.
Especially for hedges.
Aren't you getting more code enforcement folks through the
Yeah, so
realignment?
that's within the community development umbrella. And as part of the realignment plan, there were 2 additional code officers were added in terms of position. We're also restoring the neighborhood preservation coordinator position, which is a really critical position to deal with tenant protections during construction. And I am working closely with our code enforcement team and looking at kind of prioritization of calls and operations. Obviously, you know, in order to enforce every rule, you'd need like 70 of them, and we don't have 70, you know. So we were also authorized to have contract services, you know, to augment the team, you know, so to sort of, we're imagining address sort of lower level but high impact quality of life issues to free up the officers to deal with, you know, habitability issues that are very, very tricky and take a really long time to resolve. So, you know, making best use of the resources. And I think, you know, what is refreshing is in this realignment plan, you know, we will be iterating and, you know, making sure that we have the available resources to address these high priority areas.
Such as crime prevention through environmental design. Sorry, I'm just making my pitch.
Glad to hear you're getting some help there.
So if that's all the comments, I think the ones that I have heard that could definitely be added to the work plan is discussion regarding the bike action plan. Adding to 14, including providing, you know, recommendations to council to look into future items. As far as the code enforcement, I think that is, you just answered that. I think the city construction plans and mobility impacts, I'm not sure if that is exactly a work plan, but definitely something that we can forward on to our mobility and public works colleagues to look at how better to communicate construction projects throughout the city, not just to people within 100 feet, but also commuters that utilize these lines. So I think we could definitely bring that forward, but I'm not exactly sure what the work plan would be of the commission, but it's definitely an item we can forward on to our colleagues.
I think the work plan would be a presentation on how
Okay.
different, I mean, whether it may be community development and public works, like how do we talk to the public about what's happening and what the impacts are? And because even the public comment we had today about 9/11 Montana, right? Like it's good to just open that safety valve and get the input.
Similar to like 15, 16, where it's discuss, you know,
Yes.
we could add essentially
Exactly.
like mobility, discuss, you know, periodically discuss mobility impacts without the city kind of thing.
And if I might add to that, I think I like the bike action plan idea, but maybe broaden it a little to just include any complete street type improvements. I really enjoyed and appreciated the update we got from Public Works regarding Santa Monica Boulevard. But besides project specific, I think maybe once or twice during the year having kind of an overall update on the implementation of Complete Streets initiatives, I think would be helpful.
That's great. We used to get PED action plan updates too. Yeah. Is the, sorry, one last one. How, so it's, if we are an appropriate venue for updates on the Pure Bridge reconstruction, which I think relates to the construction impacts and the communication of construction impacts, but then more broadly, what is the address for infrastructure impacts related to LA 28? If it's council, fine. I mean, I'd love to be copied on the information items, but
It's, you know, the LA 28 effort's being coordinated through the city manager's office. You know, that's an organization, you know, and it's really centralized, I think, there at this point. And I'm not sure what the role of the commission would be in that, you know, honestly. There's, our staff are engaged with the LA 28 group in terms of the regional, understanding sort of like regional transportation, logistics and things like that. Of course, we're not a host city, you know, so we have our own plan to develop in terms of some activations, you know, that are being sought in Santa Monica itself. I think as part of the realignment plan, there's, you know, as you saw, a general, there was direction to proceed with activations in Santa Monica, you know, easier ways to produce events, you know, and the like. And, you know, that was kicked off with a signature event
the Dodgers
resolution.
thing, right? Oh, yeah, right.
Right,
Yeah.
which was, you know, fee waivers for these signature events. But we're working across, you know, the city manager's office. The Recreation Arts Department really is actually the lead on events. They will be the lead on events. CDD does support, you know, those events activations. You know, and what's coming forward next is sort of like a large-scale event resolution. So we're working with them on like events permitting and that kind of thing, you know, to sort of streamline that very challenging events process, creating tiers and things like that. But I think related to that is thinking comprehensively, you know, we want to hold major events, you know, at the beach and pier throughout the city and, you know, these designated venues. You know, how do people get to and from there? You know, that's really part of that, like, overall effort.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again, it might just be knowing where to look for the
And
info
on the
items.
Pure Bridge, there actually is a pretty robust communications strategy around that. Public Works is the lead on that project. They work very closely with our communications office. There will be very broad, I don't think it's not known, like,
right,
there'll be
yeah.
very broad communication because obviously it will have pretty significant impacts, you know, around the Pure area and beyond.
I think we'll notice when it happens.
We will notice, everybody will notice, yeah.
Thanks. No, thank you.
I think just to acknowledge the additions and you guys agreeing on the work plan, it might be just safe to have a motion so we can get that in the minutes.
Sure.
Before I make, I'm happy to make a motion. Can I just ask you, what does 7 mean exactly?
Digital sign ordinance. So look, some of the things, some of those things actually have already happened. So it's not that it's old, it's the fiscal year is from 25 to 26. It includes things that you've already done,
July.
given that we're November.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yes, that's
if
it.
we had a slew more of those coming our way.
No, that is what already happened last month.
Thank you.
I took credit for things that you already did.
Somebody tell former planning commissioner Raskin about number 10. A
Understood.
future Ellis Act.
Yeah.
One we can get behind.
Understood.
All right, so I move the work plan with the additions we had tonight listed by us. Yes. You might want to repeat for us for the record. My name is Jim, not Mike. Sorry, I would move that we move the work plan and the additions that we as a commission added tonight, and I'd actually ask you to repeat them.
Which include PC's recommendations to council for future potential zoning ordinance updates from Commissioner Wasserman, updates on bike action plan, updates on complete streets, and a conversation also discussion and conversation regarding city construction plans, whether that be the mobility division or the public works division. Communications.
Around those plans.
Great, yes.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Frasco? Aye. Commissioner Landris?
Aye.
Commissioner Reese?
Aye.
And Vice Chair Chaco.
Aye.
Thank you very much. We got a busy year.
All right, so I think that was our last item, and so we can conclude the meeting is adjourned as of 8:34 PM on November 19th. Thank you.